Jenny was at the sail, trying to get it down before the wind punched a hole in it. But Harrigan was no use. He had retained enough consciousness to lift himself from the bottom of the boat when the wave hit, sitting up, so that he looked like a duchess in a bath. But he still had that stare, still looked as though he was viewing a different world from the rest of them, one far more horrific. Bruton, meanwhile, just sat there, hanging onto his bench, his eyes flicking from Jenny to her children. No doubt he was resenting them, useless passengers who contributed nothing to his survival. She rolled her lips together. Why in God's name did she always have to harangue the men? Why couldn't they see what needed doing and just do it? She kicked at the privy bucket, its edges sticking up from the water inside the boat. "Bail, for God's sake! We'll founder, and soon! You have to bail!" Bruton kept staring, not the type to take orders from a woman who tied herself to a bench. The boat was slowly grinding up a wave, which disappeared underneath them, sending them crashing down. The impact dislodged some of the water, but then added more, and when Jenny wiped her eyes, she saw Bruton, stubborn but not stupid, frantically bailing with the privy bucket. Somewhere beyond these waves was a place where their choices extended beyond drowning or starvation, where she wouldn't have to clench her arms around the children and tell the sea it couldn't have them. But they hadn't reached it yet. Sometimes, when the sea was at its worst, she wondered if they ever would. Part 1. Chapter 1. Southern Cornwall, 1783. The sea had killed him, they said. Jenny did not blame the sea. Jenny blamed the king, the man who had taxed salt and windows and wigs to pay for a war in a place where people had decided that had enough of taxes and who had kept on taxing them once the war was over. So there was nothing left when the pilchard stopped coming, when the shards of silver that had swarmed around the boat every other summer vanished. Their disappearance had forced her father onto the nighttime sea. It was hungrier than its daylight counterpart. It had consumed others in their village, sometimes vomiting them up onto the shore, sometimes simply removing them from the world of earth and sunlight. Her mother was fussing that morning. Dolly, serving at a tin-bought manor, always knew how to calm her. Jenny seemed only able to make her more anxious. Constance licked her fingers to remove an imaginary smudge from Jenny's face, although there were plenty of real smudges to be dealt with. Adjusting her shawl, sweeping non-existent dust out of the door, going to the window, where the extinguished stub of a tallow candle stood. Will Trelawney had never been out all night. Constance would have heard the wind, as Jenny had, attempting to tear away the shutters and push open the door. Anyone on the ocean during that moonless night would have needed to be a lifelong mariner to survive. Will was a lifelong mariner, with a thin, etched face that hinted at more than his 40 summers. His father had taken him on the ocean before he could walk properly, Will once told Jenny, and he'd begun fishing when his age was still a single digit. Perhaps Constance was rolling the thought of Will's competence over in her mind, looking for flaws. Jenny certainly was. She had sometimes seen sailors asleep in their small boats, too tired or drunk to head home. Perhaps her father was beginning to stretch, cursing the morning cold, and the scolding he would get when he walked through the door. When he did come through the door, though, it was clear he'd been floating in the sea for some time. His skin was white with a tinge of purple, particularly around his mouth, as though he'd tried to colour his lips with crushed flowers as girls sometimes did. There was a gash on his forehead, and Jenny wondered if he'd been killed by a deliberate blow, rather than by hitting his head as the ocean tipped him from his boat, the victim of a deal gone wrong. For smugglers, events could take a dangerous turn in the darkness of a Cornish cove. Harold Tippett and his son Stephen, men who had shared the ocean with Will.